Welcome to the LDN Radio Show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today I'd like to welcome our guest Connie from the United States, who uses LDN for Hashimoto's. Thank you for joining us today, Connie.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So could you tell us your story? When did you first notice there was something wrong?
Well, I would say probably it wasn't until after my second child was born, when I was 37, that a lot of symptom problems came together, and I realized that something was not right with my body. But actually, if I go back, now that I know what I know, I probably was having thyroid issues as young as 11 or 12 years old. I do have Hashimoto's, but it was not diagnosed until, I was probably 43 or 44. I'm 61 now. So it was quite a while before my condition was diagnosed. But I started having gray hair at 11 years old. And I understand that now they've tied that to vitamin deficiencies and hypothyroidism, sometimes Graves' disease as well. But through college, I also had a case of mono. All of these things I think are difficult on the system, and it probably adds up. I've had 3 pregnancies. The first one was a miscarriage. The second was full term, and the third one was a preemie. And after my third pregnancy, my second child, is when I noticed that I wasn't feeling well. And my doctor at that time diagnosed me with postpartum depression, which it was not. It was exhaustion, number one, having a preemie and an almost 4-year-old. But also, I believe my thyroid had really failed at that time, now looking back. But I would go on to have about a year and a half of antidepressants, trying to treat something that was not depression. And I took myself off of the antidepressants after about a year and a half because I was not feeling well. And ironically, the doctor that I was seeing did not test for anything, any blood work, any thyroid issues. So when I took myself off the medication, I just increased my exercise and hoped that would help. I just knew that the antidepressant was not the answer. So fast forward to 2006, and we moved to the town where we're living now. And I saw my new doctor, and she looked at my neck and said, "Has anybody ever told you that you might have a thyroid issue?" And I said, "No, but please, let's test for it." And sure enough, we tested. She was a traditional medical doctor. She did diagnose it. She did put me on levothyroxine. But she didn't seem to be concerned at all that it was that there was a Hashimoto's component to it, which we know is an autoimmune. She just said the levothyroxine will be great and you'll feel better. Well, I did feel a little bit better, but not enough. And so she over the course of a couple more years, she tested and found vitamin D deficiency, which we treated. But again, just keeping me on the levothyroxine, and I was not feeling well. I had fatigue, I had brain fog, I wasn't sleeping well, and I just knew there had to be something else. So that's when I started doing my own research, looking at Facebook groups, doing Google searches, and I realized that probably it was autoimmune and it needed more treatment. So I started with a couple of endocrinologists who I eventually fired because they didn't have answers either. So it was about 2016 when I found a naturopathic doctor. And she began telling me about Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism and autoimmune conditions. And she suggested a dietary change component, which I'd never heard before. Suggested I remove gluten and dairy and a number of other things, which was overwhelming at first. And I wouldn't say that even today I'm 100% where I need to be with my diet. It's very hard. But I did start to pay attention, start to eliminate some gluten and dairy, trying to eat more healthy. But by 2018, my antibodies had really gone up. My TPO antibodies had gone up to 623, which is pretty high. And I was really feeling terrible. And thank goodness this doctor, she was an MD with the naturopathic training, but she was very open to doing other interventions. And I had brought, somehow or other, I must have been on a thyroid Facebook group and heard something about LDN. And I didn't know anything about it. My doctor had never mentioned it to me in the 2 years that I had been with her. But when I learned about it, I went to my pharmacy and I asked my pharmacist, my compounding pharmacist, do you prescribe this? And, or excuse me, do you fill this? And can you tell me which doctors do prescribe it? And he said, yes, I do. And it's been very helpful for those who have autoimmune conditions. And so your doctor does prescribe it. And I was like, well, that's very interesting because she's never suggested it to me. But as I said, when I first started going to her, I think my thyroid antibodies were like 175, but they had climbed to this 623 and I was feeling terrible. So I was the one who suggested it to my doctor who was already prescribing it to some of her other patients. But she agreed to do it. She said, you've got to get more strict with your gluten-free and dairy-free because I feel like you'll be working against the benefits of LDN if you don't do that thing and, you know, make that dietary change in conjunction with it. And so I agreed to do that. She put me on the LDN. We started, I want to say for 2 weeks, I did 1.5 milligrams. And eventually I got to the dosage of 3 milligrams, which is where I still am today. So that was 2018 to where I am 2022 now. But immediately I felt so much better. My antibodies dropped in 6 months from 623 to 201. And as of today, or as of my last blood test, which was about a month and a half ago, they're down to 148. So, and again, I'm not 100% perfect on the gluten-free, dairy-free, but I've worked hard to cut out a lot. I'm very purposeful when I eat gluten or dairy. It's got to be really delicious, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm not doing it before a blood test. But I know what it does to my body too. So, in conjunction with the LDN, the change in diet has definitely made a difference. And here recently, I've learned about the impact of seed oils on people with autoimmune. And so I'm really trying to cut out the nasty 8 seed oils from my diet, which is it's ridiculous how many of our processed foods have these seed oils that are so bad for people with autoimmune. They're bad for everyone, but for people with autoimmune, it just increases the possibility that you're going to turn on some switches and maybe not just have one autoimmune, but actually start to accumulate other autoimmune conditions. So I've been working to try to cut that out as well.
So before you started LDN, how many medications were you taking?
Really nothing but the levothyroxine. I tried Cytomel, 5 milligrams for a little while, and I couldn't tell a huge change. I will say that when I went to this naturopathic doctor, she took me off of the levothyroxine and put me on Natrethroid, which also helped. That was her first intervention, was to take me off of the synthetic thyroid medication and put me on the porcine thyroid. Yes, my doctor moved me over to more natural thyroid medication. And that was the first intervention, along with some supplements that she added. And that did help some, but the LDN was the game changer. It was like night and day, particularly the brain fog and the fatigue. For me, those two things lifted in a way that I felt like I was in my 20s again. I had not felt like that since before my son was born, for sure. It's interesting. I think as you start to lose some of your energy and some of the joy in life, it's just so gradual with these autoimmune diseases, or at least it was in my case. But when LDN entered the picture, it was so immediate, and I was so pleased. I've talked up LDN to everybody I know who has any kind of an autoimmune, and particularly the Hashimoto's, because that's been my particular experience.
Mm-hmm. And I know people will contact me and say, Connie said that she took supplements. You didn't ask her which supplements did she take?
Oh my goodness, it's such a long list, but I supplement with vitamin D. My doctor has me taking berberine, vitamin C. I'm taking something called Detox Dim, or Dim Detox. Of course, I'm taking a probiotic. One of the interventions that my current physician has done is she's done extensive testing. So she did a Dutch test to test my hormones. That's actually the actual name of it. And then there's another test called NutriVal, and it tests for all of your vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Those are expensive tests. They're not covered by my insurance. I think in the case of most of us who go to see a naturopathic doctor, almost everything is out of pocket. But those tests were very specific, and it allows my doctor to tailor the supplements that she recommends to what I need based on those tests. So she's not just guessing. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking a vitamin B complex. I also take progesterone. Again, all of these are tailored towards me. So it's hard to say that these are the answer for everyone else. The one thing I can tell you is LDN is the answer for me, for the hypothyroidism. I've been taking some of these supplements, before I started the LDN, and I couldn't tell any significant difference. And I've often told my doctor, you can take me off of any of those supplements, but I would lick your boots to keep on the LDN because it makes me feel so much better.
If you had to rate your quality of life before LDN on a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what would it have been?
Probably a 4.
And now?
Now I would say it's between a 9 and a 10, depending on how much sleep I get.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. I have so much energy, and I really think that it's changed the quality of my life in ways I can't even explain. I mean, I'm able to do things with friends and my husband, and I clean my own house, and I exercise several times a week. Those were things that I struggled to do regularly before LDN.
Mm-hmm. What an amazing story. So what would you say to other people who feel there is something wrong, there might be something wrong with their thyroid, what would your advice be, having been in that situation yourself?
Find a naturopathic doctor. Find someone who is willing to talk to you about your symptoms and not just your thyroid blood work, because that was my experience for several years. And once I found a naturopathic doctor who knew other things to do for thyroid condition, and particularly autoimmune, the world just started getting better for me. And if someone is interested in learning where to find those physicians, like I said, go the backwards route. Go to your local compounding pharmacy and ask them, who are the doctors who prescribe LDN? Or who are the doctors you know that are naturopathic doctors in this area? Because they're hard to find, particularly the good ones are very hard to find. But it's been interesting. I've met probably 5 or 6 friends in the last 3 years who are seeing naturopathic doctors because the traditional physicians are not trained well enough beyond what they know with synthetic hormones. And so it's frustrating. You want to trust them, you want to use your health insurance to pay for it, but the answers are somewhere else, and it's usually with that naturopathic doctor.
Well, what an amazing story. You've done so remarkably well. I should think you wish you'd known about this years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would encourage people who have any type of autoimmune condition to talk about this particular medication with their doctor. I will tell you that my mother-in-law was having neuropathy in her feet, and her doctor had never heard of LDN, but I told her about things I'd read on the LDN Research Trust page, how people had used it for neuropathy, and now she's also taking LDN successfully.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing the story with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.